Okay, hello everyone. Wow, sun is really bright, but that's a good thing because I want to explain to you about the lock picture that you see should be down below me there and how I photographed it. We're on location at the Legg household here in Kansas City, Missouri. And as my husband fondly likes to say, the Leggs always travel in pairs. Yeah, I have to live with that sense of humor every day. So, let's get to the picture. One of the main things I want to share with you is one of my favorite ways to photograph, or favorite tool to photograph with, and that is my trusty piece of bubble wrap. And this is a filter that I use to filter out the harshness of the sun. In the photograph, this lock is going to be really bright, and the shadow is going to be really dark, and this is what you call light ratios. And when the light ratios are far apart, the shadow could be 2 stops or 3 or more, and this would be at one stop. You would expose for the lock, then there's no detail in the shadow. Or if you expose for the shadow, then there's no detail in the lock. So one of the ways I correct that is by putting my trusty bubble wrap with this is just a piece of wooden rod there you can get at the hardware store, and you put that up in between the sun and your subject, like so, and you see, like that, you get a lot softer lighting. And sometimes I'll just make this a single layer. Sometimes if it's really bright, I'll make it a double layer. This one I shot it with a single layer, and you can see that's really nice light there. I can work with that when I take it into Photoshop. And the wonderful thing about my little tool here, my filter, is it's very portable and lightweight. I'm not into carrying around heavy equipment. And you can also use a shower curtain that's kind of frosted but no coloring or any kind of detail on it. That'll work too. And so the other thing I wanted to share is about the light ratios again, between the highlights and the shadows. What a lot of photographers do is they have the cameras that can take like 7 exposures right in a row in about a second or 2. And they expose each one of those shots at different exposures, and then they sandwich them all together. It's called HDR photography. Well, you can do the same thing in Topaz, Adjust 5, with just one shot. And they have an HDR area, and they also have an area where you can adjust your highlights and shadows. Adjust 5 is just a huge improvement from 4. There's so many more, 100 more presets than there was before. The one I chose for the lock that I just fell in love with is called, in the film collection, Bleach Bypass. And that's what gives this shot, as you see the finished shot down below, that's what gives it that kind of platinum silvery look. It's not a complete black and white. There's still some color. You can see a little of the texture, the browns of the fence still coming out in the photograph. And I just loved that look. Then I thought, well, that's pretty neat, but it needs something else. You know, I try to work until a picture seems finished to me, and it wasn't quite finished. It's just one of those artist intuitive things that I've developed. And so I, of course, needed to add some texture. And the first person I usually go to is Kim Klassen. I love her textures. They always work on my art. Usually I can choose several blend modes, whereas some I only have one blend mode that will work with other textures. But there's so many great ones out there. For this one I use Kim Klassen's Scratched Magic. That's one of her magic textures where you always put it on the screen mode. And you can see in the picture, the finished picture, the scratches came out in this shadow area and just gave it an energy, a movement that I really liked. It wasn't such a static picture after that. And then I used 2 layers of Scratch Magic, I think. I need to go back. I'm going to write my recipe down below. And then finally I needed something to kind of frame it. I tried quick edge burn, but I didn't like that. And then I went to Leslie Nicole French Kiss textures. I also love her textures. They're very painterly and artistic. And I picked one called Old Master, and I took a lot of the brown out of it. I made it, to kind of match the platinum look I was looking for, and I put that in there. You'll see what blend modes I used, and the idea with blend modes is to make your photograph blend together, and like it's got that painterly look. It blends, so you adjust your opacity to get the amount of blending that you like, that you think works with your photograph. Alright, so, and then also in Topaz I think I did a shadow recovery in there, and that's where I just brought out the details in the shadow a little bit more, and so it's not so harsh as you see here. Let me get you in a little closer as best I can. I don't have editing software yet, but right there is the lock close up, and you can see all the detail on the fence. This is an old fence. I don't know if it's 15-20 years, but that's some good texture. I can make my own texture out of that. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope I didn't make you dizzy with all the camera movement. And that's the promised lock. The finished picture is on the blog. See you later. That's what I call a jewel of a picture.